Question. Sir John, is the effort of the GPH sufficient enough to maintain peace with the Bangsamoro people? Answer. The GPH effort to maintain peace with the Bangsamoro people is not sufficient enough. I was wrong in my impression that the Office of the Presidential Advisor on Peace Process, or OPAP, is administering the fund for the peace process activities such as peace talks. I was informed that the participant peacekeepers of the MNLFs, which includes negotiators, advocates, leaders, and commanders, are using their personal money to attend peace process activities with the GPH. The OPAP has around 250 million fund each year from the taxes of our people. But instead of spending it to sustain the participants of the peace process, they are using the fund to something like DSWD and NHA like operation to the barangays, which they call Pamana Project. I will advise MNLF to stop attending peace process activities until the GPH allocates fund to sustain the peacekeepers of the MNLF. The relationship of the GPH and MNLF will always be volatile. Both parties must be always careful, extra careful, not only in avoiding provocations, but more so in maintaining the participation of the MNLF in the peace process activities. The GPH must financially sustain the key players of the MNLF who participates in the peace process activities. Another hurdle of the peace process is the lack of empowerment on the GPH negotiators. Whatever is agreed upon on the negotiating table is not always final, because the GPH still has to bring it up, the agreements, for the perusal of the President, the Legislative Branch, and the Supreme Court. This can be solved by empowering the negotiators. Another persistent setback is the corrupted system of the GPH that makes them incapable of maintaining peace and order in Mindanao, because the law enforcers and politicians themselves are the ones creating trouble. Question. Sir John, do you think the provision of integration in the final peace agreement was successfully implemented? What are the alternative ways to encourage the MNLF to succumb into submission into the governance of the GPH and integrate into the mainstream society that is established by the GPH? Answer. You must be referring to Section 20 of the 1996 Final Peace Agreement, which is, I quote, 5,750 MNLF members shall be integrated into the Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, 250 of whom shall be absorbed into the auxiliary services. The government shall exert utmost effort to establish the necessary conditions that would ensure the eventual integration of the maximum number of the remaining MNLF forces into the Special Regional Security Force, or SRSF, and the other agencies and instrumentalities of the government. There shall be a special socio-economic, cultural, and educational program to cater to MNLF forces not absorbed into the AFP, PNP, and the SRSF, to prepare them and their families for productive endeavors, provide for educational, technical skills, and livelihood training, and give them priority for hiring in development projects. End quote. In one of the negotiations I attended, the GPH reported that they have already completed the integration program of the MNLF into the AFP and PNP. When I heard such remarks, I got this impression that the GPH must be interpreting that provision of the FPA as a maximum ceiling of number of MNLF forces to be integrated into the AFP and PNP. I think the GPH is wrong. In my interpretation, the provision merely provides a specific number as measurement of success of implementation of the integration program. Hence, those numbers must be treated as minimums, not maximums. It is impossible for the MNLF to succumb into submission to the governance of the GPH because the MNLF thinks that mainstream society established by the GPH as a morally inferior society and a corrupted system. The ignorant majority of Filipino people needs to get their facts straight and change their impression about the MNLF. My challenge is simple. I would like you to read the most recent comprehensive human rights report of the Human Rights Commission, the United Nations Security Council, and the United States State Department. If you can find anything in there that mentions a bad note about the MNLF, I will personally reward you. Different people have different picture of an ideal mainstream society. If you want the MNLF to join the mainstream society established by the GPH, you have to make it more appealing. So we will jump into it in a natural and voluntary fashion. Right now, what do you have in the Philippine mainstream society? You have corruption directly participated in by the very people who make and enforce the laws. You have a society that tolerates corruption, wherein the few who does not condone it were already assassinated. You have overexploitation of natural resources, as if you have no children and grandchildren who needs nature in the future. You have systematic land grabbing directly participated in by the very institutions who are supposed to protect property rights. You have religious discrimination. You have depopulation policies against Islam. You have oppression of the rural folks. You have abuse of political authority. You have unfair allocation of government resources. You have human rights abuses by the very institutions who are supposed to protect the people. And most of all, you have growing extreme poverty, wherein few are just enjoying the tears of the desperate people in your afternoon shows. Is the Philippine society the kind of mainstream society you want us to jump into? Do you want the MNLF to work for the mainstream illegal loggers who have interlapping interests with the government agents? For your information, Mindanao locates the 7 out of 10 most impoverished provinces in the entire Philippines. And MNLF is not attracted nor happy in that information. If Philippines want to go down to hell, the MNLF struggles to find ways to build a sanctuary for whoever survives the burning hell of Philippine society. The MNLF vision for an independent Mindanao is more attractive compared to the credentials of the GPH that is just a mere garbage pit of imaginary ideas and images, and the stockpile of broken promises.